wanted everybody to know that Bart Barron and John Wagner were invited, but they declined. They said that they wanted to take their campaign directly to the people. So I thought, well, that's fine. I'm sorry they're not here.
This is a test. Are you all regular people?
Let me check.
He was here last time.
Very good. Well, look, I really appreciate it. My name is Don Ytterberg. I'm currently the chairman of the Republican Party in Jefferson County. I've had a privilege of knowing and working with a lot of you. I've campaigned with some of you, raised money with some of you, and I've commiserated over pizza with several of you. So that probably makes me qualified to stand up here and say, what are we doing here? A couple of years ago, I ran for state senate in District 16. I lost to a fellow named Dan Gibbs, who was heavily funded by some of the unions, the NEA, JCEA, that's Jeffco, and 6 other counties, what have you, and realized that we're not playing the game quite the same way as the other guys are. They are playing with an organized team that we are still somewhat behind. After I lost that election, I realized that there was no place to go but to back in the game. So I ran for chairman of Jefferson County Party. We have about 1/8 of the legislature run through our office. We have 8 representatives and 5 senators that are Representative Jeffco. And of course, one of our superstar representatives is trying to hide from me, but Mr. Ramirez is our Mr. 33, as I call him. He's the guy I like to. Congratulations on the campaign. I've been running the county for the last couple of years. We've raised some money. We raised about $90,000 last year. And one of the things we did with that money that hadn't been done when I jumped in was to give the money to candidates. I know that's sort of a foreign concept, but actually supporting your candidates when they get into the game is kind of fun. It would have been nice to be able to give them the money earlier in the year, but we had to take a few months to get there. When I jumped in the game, I went to my party and said, "Can I have some help?" And what I was greeted with was the sound of crickets. Certainly you can have some help. Good luck, son. We'll see you in a few months. I realize that probably is insufficient. I'm a businessman, have been for a bunch of years. I've owned businesses in Arvada. I run the family construction company. It's almost 100 years old, owned by my brother now. And as a result of that experience, I realized that we don't run our railroad correctly. We compete for our resources. We silo information. We have things that start at different times. It's kind of like trying to get on 3 trains that are running at different speeds and starting in different stations. And you got to get there all at the same time on one track. And here are my 3 trains. County Party works 24/7. About 6 to 18 months ahead of the general election, campaigns pop up. And there's the first tension. There's a competition for resources. Those are volunteer resources and dollar resources. And then about April or May, we have the victory operations start in. And again, more competition for the same resources. It seems to me if we're on the same team, we just might ought to be able to work together without siloed operations. If I know something, you ought to know something. Another thing, why would the state party be called upon to select your candidate? You know, one of the things we did in Jeffco is we said, we need 8 House representative candidates, and that's not true. We needed fewer than that because we had some wonderful incumbents. But the first thing we said to the neighborhoods was, who's already leading? Who are the people who've got the skills? Who's got the imagination to take your neighborhood's issues down to the Capitol and represent them well? And I got to tell you, there was an interesting discussion when we first brought that up in our own central committee, in our executive committee meeting. Because we're not used to that. We're used to seeing people who have been in the game a while stick their hand up as if it's my turn. Okay, well, I didn't come from that. In 2007, I was sitting in my living room throwing shoes at the television as Mr. Bush was spending another $1. I said, this is wrong. I began to think the government can't do anything for me until they take dollars from me. Which means that the only thing I can do is oppose this as vigorously as I'm able. So I left my living room, and my wife and my kids, who I haven't seen now in several years. I understand they're doing fine, and some of them are in college now, which is really nice.
Sending money.
And as long as they tell me where the checks are supposed to go, everything's game. But I really believe that local recruitment of candidates is critical to the success of our operations. And I got to tell you, for me, local changes every time I talk about a different race. If I'm talking about a city council race, local means right there, in the ward or in the area where that councilman will serve. If we're talking about a county commissioner, well, go with me here. That would be the confines of the county. If I'm talking about a House district, or a Senate district, or a congressional district, people within those districts are the ones that should represent. And they are already leading. It's just our job to get them pushed forward. I hope you agree with that. And I think, I don't know how long I've got, Lori, I don't want to take a long time, but I've got one more thought that I'd like to bring up, and that's our current vice chair has inaugurated a program to try to get everybody's information systems up and running. And as I recall now, we're about 70% coverage with websites. That's great. The other team is communicating by the hundreds of thousands on little devices that you have on your belt. By the way, I hate cell phones, I hate email, so I have 2 cell phones and 4 email addresses, and they're pinned to me at all times. Only in politics, baby, only in politics. But you know, if I want to talk to my 21-year-old, the best thing to do for me is to text him. If I want to get something downstream to my oldest son and daughter, who live in Seattle, or actually one's in Seattle, one's in Littleton, the best thing for me to do is to text them. I don't tweet because I have trouble, I don't know, maybe I don't sing well or something. But I think there's a tool there. And I believe that that tool needs to be embraced by the party. The Obama campaign several years ago embarked on what looked like an organic effort to communicate with itself. I got to promise you that effort was far from organic. The first check that they wrote to establish electronic networking among that organic organization was for $30 million. And they wrote multiple checks thereafter. You don't spend $700 million on a presidential campaign without spending it on infrastructure. As I said at the outset, I'm a business guy. I'm offering my services to the party really as a COO. The party chairman will set some direction. Obviously, you can see from my values that I am somewhat conservative. I really believe in the Constitution. I believe that your money belongs to you. I believe if government really wants it, they have to tell you that they want it, and you have to tell them back you're willing. You know why government has to tax you? Because you're unwilling to pay for the services that they currently provide. So they hold it up, essentially, they hold you up. This is one of the greatest crimes of the century, and nobody's been busted. Anyhow, I really would like to be your vice chair to see if I can offset some of the workload that's put on the chairman. The chairman has a big responsibility. We've got to raise a lot of money. We have to mobilize a lot of troops. We got to have people working on the same projects. And we have to have every organization that is springing up all over the state talking to each other and talking to the party. The party should not be another silo. I would welcome all of you to work with me in the party. Matter of fact, in Jeffco, we tried that last year. We tried an outreach to various of the liberty groups. Some of it worked better than others. We weren't very good at it. But you know, if we're willing to keep trying, I'm confident we can be extremely effective. In any event, I would appreciate your vote and your support, and I'd like to be your vice chairman. Thank you.
But what a big job that is for him to provide legal counsel, given that every time you turn around, the Democrats have figured out a way to sue us or do some damage to us. So, and also, Brian, I know that you have really helped a lot of different groups with different 501c4s, and you do that because you love the party, and we really appreciate that. So, give him a big hand for that. You have worked tirelessly as our vice chair for 2 years. Thank you. We really appreciate it, don't we, guys? And I know that Leondray has shared his frustration with the 20% that just aren't on the train yet, the technology, but we'll get them there. I know we will. So thank you both for coming. I'm going to turn this thing over to you and ask some questions. And the first one that I have is, we'll have about 6 minutes per question. Tyler's going to time it. What is the primary role of the state chair? The primary role. And as you answer this, please think about how you are going to get where you want to go. Everybody get that one? Oh.
Thanks very much, Lori. And I'd have to just begin by thanking each one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules, taking time away from family and friends to be here tonight. The fight in which we're engaged is an important one, isn't it, friends? And I appreciate your dedication of time and energy and the sacrifices that you all make to be a part of this important cause. The job of the state chairman, first and foremost, in my opinion, is to build the coalitions that are necessary to win elections. That's a daunting challenge within our party because, and perhaps in stark contrast to our friends on the Democratic Party side of the aisle, we are a bunch of independent-minded conservatives and individualists. And so oftentimes it's hard to find unanimity or unanimous opinions amongst ourselves. That, however, is one of our deep strengths in the conservative movement, that we are individualists. We recognize the value and merit of every single individual. And that's really what one of those founding principles that unites us. But it also makes it sometimes challenging to build a sense of unity within the conservative movement and coalitions. And so the job of the state chairman is to build a clear and principled vision for what the party needs to accomplish, and then build the coalitions that are necessary to accomplish that goal. It is no fun to be in the minority. Just ask Senator Mitchell over here. To see your bills die in committee, to not be able to implement into policy those conservative principles that drive us. And so the job of the chairman is to help elect Republicans so that we have the majority, so that we can control the table, and so that we can set policy. And Representative Ramirez, 197 votes is the difference between us as Republicans having a seat at the table on important issues like redistricting and reapportionment, legislative policies like taxes and budgets, and really just the role of government. And being able to have those majorities is absolutely critical. We need to make sure that the Republican Party and the party's chairman understands and comes from a perspective of those deep-seated conservative values of limited government, of personal responsibility, of freedom and opportunity. Those things that really have been at the core of not only what has made the Republican Party great, but this great country. And I believe that as we are firm and clear in articulating those principles and building a winning coalition, then we're going to be able to put into policy those values that we share. The job of the chairman is to do that. But the job of the chairman is also to build the infrastructure to make that happen. One of the challenges sometimes that we have, I think, is as principled conservatives, is we adopt the Sir Galahad theory of politics. I am virtuous, I am righteous, I am right on all these issues, and therefore I will win. Is that right, Lori?
That's right, I understood it.
That's right. The answer is no, you'll lose, unless you actually do something to build the infrastructure, to recruit the volunteers, to put the resources into play and into place to be able to move the dial. And especially here in Colorado, we've got to be able to have a clear and consistent and principled vision of what we stand for. But then we've got to be able to take that message out to our friends and neighbors. In tough districts, like Representative Ramirez's district there in Jefferson County and other places, Senator Mitchell's district in Adams and Weld and Broomfield, and be able to communicate with those other patriots, I believe, that care about the direction of the country, care about their families, care about their community, and as we articulate what it is that we stand for as Republicans, we'll bring people over to the team. That's the job of the state chairman. I would love to have your support. Look forward to this ongoing conversation, because the next state chairman is going to need not only the votes and the support of your elected folks that are going to be voting for us, but they're going to need the help of every single one of you who share that commitment to these core values and share that willingness to sacrifice for this conservative cause. I've been involved in this fight for a long time, starting on the college campuses of CU Boulder, and I'll tell you, it's tough being a principled conservative at CU. Joel over here has to bring a stick along with him to make sure he can sort of fend himself off from the left. I've been fighting those fights for a good long time. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun to invite Charlton Heston to the CU Boulder campus to talk about liberty and the Second Amendment, right? Michael was there. He helped us with a lot of the important things of bringing those fights there. And you know what? That conversation is important. That fight is important. Your next state chairman needs to have that fight in him, and the willingness to be able to take that fight to the streets, to every single neighborhood. I'd love to have your support and look forward to this ongoing conversation.
Well, I see the role of the state party chairman in two pieces. One is to build the party, to expand the party, and the other is to elect Republicans. Now, there are many things that go into that. First, our state party chairman is going to have to be fundraiser in chief. We need money. Campaigns cost. Ink costs, toner costs, paper costs, door hangers, gel inserts for the shoes for all our accidents. These things cost money. So in order to grow the party based on principle, in order to expand our influence, in order to elect Republicans, we have to raise money. And we have to, you're correct, Ryan, we have to build an infrastructure. There must be education. There have to be webinars. There have to be more campaign schools. I heard people talking earlier about, we're going to eliminate some of the redundancy between counties so that a precinct leader knows what he or she is supposed to do. And I'm picking on Patty. She's done one of the best jobs I've ever seen in laying that out. And that is something that we need to copy, and we need to move around the state. So my attitude towards what a state party chairman is, state party chairman is a leader, he's a party builder, and he is a person, or she is a person that will work tirelessly to elect Republicans. What we're up against this time is nothing other than the best campaigner I've ever seen. I'm only 37, but I've seen a few of them. Barack Obama is a fabulous campaigner. I remember how he used technology, and I'd like to make a better use of it, but how John McCain would make a speech and 2 minutes later he'd come out with a counter speech all over the country. When Hillary Clinton ran out of money, he had a send button. Send me $3, send me $50, send me $100. And I think we know who's raised the most money for a presidential race in history, don't we? This is what we're up against. So, in addition to raising the money and building the infrastructure and taking our principles, our party, and our banner to people in places that have never, ever wanted to be Republican before, this state party chairman is going to have to fight back against, tooth and nail, the greatest campaigner ever, President Obama. We must deliver 9 electoral votes to the Republican nominee, whomever that may be, in 2012. And we all know that Colorado is the key to the Western region. So we're fighting not just for our state, our districts, and our neighborhoods, but right here is the battleground for this nation, whether we go on as a republic or whether we turn into something else. So that is the critical light in which I look at the state party chairman for this particular cycle.
It's the primary role of the state party. And is that an evolving role? You want to start, Leondray?
So, the state party is an extension of the chairman. The state party is there simply to provide a structure and a place of learning so that we can all do what we really want to do, which is elect Republicans. The state party should be a reservoir of information. I want to run for House District 33, or I want to run for Senate District 23. What do I do? Well, stop off at your county, then stop off at the state party. We should have the information there telling you how this district voted, how things have gone for going back several cycles. I believe the state party is simply there to be a resource for activists like us to take our principle, take our party, and take seats. That's what I think the state party does.
You are the state Republican Party. You are the Republican Party of Colorado. Not me, and that's, I think, one of the real challenges and problems that we've had with our Republican Party structure over the last little while. It is concentrated in the hands of a few. And I would like to see the state party, the Colorado Republican Party, be owned by each and every single one of you. We all have an investment in it. We all take a stake in it. We all have a voice in it. That's important to me. And over the last little while, I've seen up close that disconnect sometimes that happens between the machinery, the operations of the party, has gotten itself away from the folks out there doing the hard work. The volunteers, the activists, the actual Republican and even unaffiliated voters need to see the party as the vehicle to give voice to their political voice. You know, it's core First Amendment and core constitutional rights of association, of freedom of speech, and banding together based on common ideology to accomplish political goals. That's what the Republican Party is. The party needs to be able to provide the real substantive tools and resources to empower Josh Raines so that when he gets up, he logs into the system, pulls down a list of the voters in his neighborhood on his block so he knows who to talk to. He gets a list of some of the major principles the Republican Party stands for so he knows how to articulate a welcoming, positive message of what the Republican Party is. It's the resources in terms of voter history and financial resources, yes. But it's also the vehicle through which we can express our political voice. One of the proposals that I've made just in the last couple of days is designed to help empower that. So often the state party has made sort of arbitrary decisions in terms of how we allocate resources, how we make decisions in terms of which races we target, or how we do those kinds of decisions. And I'm looking to change that. In fact, those people that are going to be here, that are your county leadership, on March 26th, you're going to be voting on certain bylaws proposals that I have just submitted that will take away from the chairman the authority to appoint all of his buddies to the executive committee and put that authority back into the hands of our county leadership to pick their representatives to our state executive committee. To empower the executive committee to approve the budget, not just ratify what the chairman says. To make the responsibility of our county party leaders, the people that are closest to the grassroots and are hearing the concerns, have them responsible for weighing the different priorities and making decisions on who you hire, how much you pay them, where we allocate resources to help them support. Those kinds of substantive and meaningful delegations of authority back out to where it really matters, and that's all of you. That's the folks on the ground that are actually doing it. Those are the kinds of substantive proposals that I would propose as your next party chairman, because you're the Republican Party, I'm the Republican Party. We should be working together in this effort.
A lot. And so I ask you to define a rhino.
I got to tell you, Lori, I hate that word. Because
Good answer.
I'm from Denver. Every time we find any Republican, we just give them a hug. We love them. I mean, all 7 of us get together and we just sort of No, that's the problem. You know, in my opinion, we have to recognize that we share these core conservative values, but I believe that our party, because we hold up the value and worth of every individual, we need to make sure that in our tent, in our party, we've got room enough for some disagreement. And that's okay. Now, we have the opportunity to have honest disagreement on matters of legislative policy and how we best implement what we care about America. But you know, what unites us is a whole lot more than what divides us. And any Republican is better than the Democrat who was running against Robert Ramirez. Any Republican is better than the Democrat running against Sean Mitchell, in my book. And so part of what we will have to do is to do that. Now, we can do a better job of recruiting good candidates, providing training, getting more people in the field that are better at being able to implement those values. But we've got to first recognize that if we're going to win elections, we win by building the coalition and not kicking out people with whom we disagree with 20% of the time. So that's my feeling. I hate that word, a rhino, because I love Republicans and I love the Republican Party. I've been in this fight since college campus days, and this is important. The stakes are just too high for us to remain divided. So I invite every Republican who cares about the future of the country to join us in the Republican Party and make a difference. Thanks.
A rhino. What is a rhino? Well, I'll tell you. I have difficulty with this one because if you haven't noticed, I'm black. I'm not kidding, ask my parents. The point is, I have to almost fist fight for the right to be called and recognized as a Republican. And I don't think where I fall out on issues necessarily should dictate how much of a Republican I am. For the record, many of you know me, I'm a pretty nutty conservative. But I don't say that the whole world has to be just like me. Other than being a strikingly handsome place, it would be dreadfully boring. Absolutely. So, rhino for me, it's an animal. One has one horn, one has two horns, and one of them's in danger. I do think we need a litmus test, though, for the Republican Party, and I'll give you mine. Show of hands, how many people love liberty? How many people believe in the Constitution? How many people are willing to fight for it? And how many people take the duties in that preamble that says you have to forward this great land and pass it on to your kids? That's a duty. You believe that?
Yes.
Congratulations, you're a Republican. That's my litmus test. And as chairman, those are the only Republicans I want. Thanks.
Thank you. You know, I've been to a lot of different meetings, and we talk about it in these circles, what we want. And I hear much about leadership being a very important skill in this position. Well, how do you define good leadership? And can you give us an example of what that looks like?
Leadership. How do you define good leadership? Good leadership is decisive. Good leadership is steady. Good leadership is innovative. One thing it doesn't do is vacillate. It doesn't hem and haw. It serves the people that it intends to lead, it purports to lead, and that is the leader or leadership itself. That's how you know whether or not you have a good leader. George Washington, great leader. Why? Was he a military genius? No, some of that stuff was pretty suicidal that he attempted. It was. And for the record, they wouldn't let him in the Navy, for all you sailors here. But his leadership was to serve the people. He served and trained and educated the men and women around him. He inspired people to work towards a common goal, which was nothing short of freedom. The most incredible governmental experiment ever. This guy, this person, this leader served the people, and he left us with that. That's what good leadership looks like. Good leadership is service. Good leadership is putting the group, is putting the party, is putting the country, the family, the other person ahead of yourself. That's how you know the mark of leadership.
Great words. There's a passage in the Old Testament, the scripture, that says that when there is no vision, the people perish. Job of a good leader is to set forth that vision. And my vision, and I hope it's one that each of you share, is that over the course of the next 2 to 4 years, we wake up after November in 2012 with Republican control of the State House and the State Senate.
Yeah.
With 9 electoral votes having gone to the Republican candidate for president in Colorado, and that we've elected an ex-Republican and given Barack Obama just 1 term in terms of what his impact on America will be. And in 2014, that we've built the groundwork to make sure that we elect a Republican governor of the state of Colorado. That's the sort of vision that I have. I hope that's a vision you share, because it's going to take all of us working together to make that happen. Leadership involves having not only that vision, but also the experience in terms of making some of those tough decisions. And it's a tough battle we're engaged in. And your next state chairman is going to need to navigate some pretty treacherous waters. Not only is he going to have some real hands-on experience in terms of managing political party organizations, But the very difficult arena of campaign finance limitations, election laws, redistricting and reapportionment, all these kinds of things make it difficult for our party organization to survive. Leadership from the state Republican Party and from each one of you is going to need to find out where the role of the party is and chart a clear vision so people know how to get behind it and run. And over the last number of years, I've had the privilege of serving this party in a lot of different meaningful ways. As the county party chairman in Denver for the last 2 years, I've had to run caucuses and assemblies. I've had to help candidates in a hands-on way. And that experience of making tough decisions, of being able to manage all the moving parts, is difficult. But it's also a demonstration, I think, of the kind of leadership ability that you need in your leaders to be able to hit the ground running. So that's my definition of discussion of leadership in the context of the party.